Okay, everyone, we're going to move to the next segment of our agenda. As I mentioned in my opening comments, this year we are doing something a little bit different. Our host, GSVlabs, indicated they would be interested in learning a little bit more about government challenges and how the startups that are housed here at GSVlabs how they may have some possible solutions for those of us in government and the civic sector. So we asked you, some of our attendees ahead of time, to share your pain points. Alec Wright and his team here at GSVlabs selected a few of these submissions ahead of time. And now we're going to hear how technology can help solve some of these problems confronting government and the civic sector. So first, let me introduce Alec and bring him to the stage. Alec Wright serves as the Chief Operating Officer and Startup Director at GSVlabs, overseeing startup recruitment and the growth of the GSVlabs ecosystem. Prior to GSVlabs, Alec served as a management consultant for several early-stage startups and worked in banking and finance law. Alec has also served in roles focused on investment due diligence, financial structuring, and corporate compliance. Alec also helps lead the GSVlabs Sustainability Lab, working with the Clean Tech Open to deploy sustainability-focused programming, mentorship, and business growth opportunities. A longtime sustainability advocate, he writes about clean tech innovation at the website greenchipped.com and has served as a judge for the Department of Energy's Flow Startup Competition. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alec Wright.
Well, welcome to GSVlabs, and I'm sure this is probably the third of many welcomes you will receive throughout the day. And as you've heard, GSVlabs is an innovation center that houses 150 plus startups, hundreds of mentors working with corporate partners from around the world with one focus, and that's to drive innovation and accelerate the most promising startups and teams of tomorrow. And so I was really excited when I first met the Connect15 team, and they, gave me the opportunity to put together a couple startups, some from within the GSVlabs community, others from, that we've met throughout the years that we think have really interesting technology solutions that could help improve opportunity and outcomes in our community. And that's one of the areas where we think Silicon Valley, really has a lot of work to do. And so it's a great chance for, us to come and meet you all today, and then also for our startups to get a chance to really talk to you about what they're doing and the opportunities that exist. And so, we looked through the challenges that you put forward and selected a couple of those. And I will kind of introduce a challenge, and then we'll bring a startup on stage that has a really unique solution to that. And so the first challenge was to ensure that all children are reading proficiently at the end of grade 3. And what technology tools can be deployed to help students, teachers, and parents and administrators achieve that goal. So first, we'll be hearing from Babar, Baig, the CEO of Writereader.
The clicker. Yeah, thank you, Alec. Really excited to be here today. My name is Babar. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Writereader. We actually founded the company in Copenhagen, all the way in Denmark, 3 years back almost. And now we're part of the GSV Lab, which we're really excited about. We relocated since July here. And what we're actually about is that we want to enable children to learn through creation, utilizing the 21st century skills. Now, 7.5 million children in the US will become functional illiterate, meaning that they will be struggling with basic reading and writing skills. And they're all below 10 years of age right now. We want to ensure this does not happen. Just imagine the daily struggle of these children growing up, not being able to read a sign on the street, struggling in their school on a daily basis. So we actually gathered some of the leading scientific researchers in order to address exactly this problem. We spent 2 years in scientific research and came up with a platform, literacy platform, which engages children in a totally different way. What we found out is that for 250 years, no one has actually questioned the way we teach our children how to read and write. Just think about that, 250 years. All in here, all of us, we've learned reading and writing through the phonetic approach, which is the ABC. But what we also know is that the ABC approach does not embrace all children. 20% of all students in school are functional illiterate. So this is a challenge, and this is not about poverty or parents not caring about their children. This is actually a challenge in the school for all normal children right now. So let me try to address this visually. This is Peter. He's 6 years old, and he has started to learn the phonetic approach through by the letters. He's learned A to T and is now able to articulate T and eat. But what Peter is really interested about is monster trucks and dinosaurs. And in order for him to express that through the phonetic approach, he'll eventually have to wait a long time. And he will actually end up losing his motivation for literacy. So how can we engage children from 3 years and give them a concept that literacy is actually something interesting and can be utilized? So the platform which we have created, Peter can come onto our platform and create his own stories. And how that works is that Peter can insert a picture of monster truck, he can color his book, and then he can do a writing attempt, not even knowing how to write. The teacher or the parent or the adult will do the conventional writing, and by comparing, Peter will actually know how it's supposed to be spelled. Now, if you think about it, it's actually the same way we teach our children how to talk. The child makes an attempt, and the parents say it out loud how it's supposed to be pronounced. And in that interaction, the child and learning takes place. That's how we all have learned how to talk. So the parents actually have a huge role to play. They don't realize that yet. They're actually the child's first and best teachers. And what we're doing is that we're also empowering parents to enable them to also support the children in reading and writing. So by comparing and getting feedback, the child will learn. Once the books are finished, they can be published to a global audience, enabling children from the age of 3 to become authors. We have created one of the first publishing platforms for children's self-created books. And our vision with the platform now, this is how it looks like. We have more than almost 1 million books created by children, and some of them are also published globally. This is my son. His name is Zane. He's 7 years. He had an assignment in class about birds. So he chose the eagle and wrote about the eagle. And what really excites my son is that more than 5,000 have actually read his book globally, and he's gotten all these likes. So he's onto the platform at least twice a week just to check up on his stats. And that motivates him to write even more because it's based on his interests. He takes advantage of that. Our vision with the platform now is to track children's literacy skills and provide that data back to teachers, educators, and parents so they can support their children even more. Our data efficacy test shows a significant increase in motivation for acquiring literacy. And there are basically 3 reasons of doing that. The first is that the children and the students, they really feel ownership about their own books. They feel that this is something that they have created because it's based on their interest. The tool is easy and simple to use. And just the fact that they can get feedback from teachers and parents is really vital for the child's and student's development. We have now built a complete classroom solution where a teacher can come in and sign up within 30 seconds and have a full overview of all the children's books and be able to edit those books on the go on any device or any browser. We have users in more than 40 countries, and 1 million books created. The reason that we got declared the best literacy app in Scandinavia is because unlike other literacy tools and apps, our solution actually encourages a conversation with an adult. Because as we know, learning takes place in an informal environment in interaction with others. Our team is experienced. We work with leading scientific researchers, and our founding team, we have Janus Madsen, who's been the teacher for the past 16 years and awarded the best teaching resource in Denmark by the Ministry of Education. And so our solution works on any device and any browser. And I just wanted to lastly here put some comments on about the technology and how technology can be used in the classrooms. So from our point of view, technology alone in itself is not the answer to the literacy challenge. So we need to actually think about how we're using the technology. There's actually scientific reports that states that the Day survey that, let's say, 85% of all the educational apps have no educational purpose. Just because a tool or an app looks good on a tablet doesn't mean that it's good for a child. There's one study that states that in best case scenario, the child will not become stupid of using all these things. So we have another, so for instance, if you have a tool or something where you can pop balloons on a planet, so the child will, or the student will become really good at doing that, but the child will have no whatsoever idea on how to relate that in a real life experience. So the technology has to be used with some real life examples and take advantage of the children's interest. And if you combine these two things, then we see an effect. So we're really excited to be here now. We are used in more than 700 schools in Scandinavia, coming on to the US, and I'm talking with educators, schools, districts. So I would really like to engage in conversation with you on how we could work together, to solve this literacy problem. So I would stop here and encourage the conversation. Let's have some questions, and then we can take it from there. Thank you.
So good morning, my name's Hillary. I'm actually a school board trustee. So in my district, the kids who need this the most, their parents don't read or write in any language. They don't have internet connectivity, and they don't have a device they can take home. So how do you solve problems like that? And I have teachers who may not be able to get to the 32 kids that are in their class.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And these are the real life challenges which we're also seeing in all the classrooms. So first of all, our solution which we have for tablet works offline. So initially you will need to have to log in, but once you've done that, you can actually work offline by creating your own books. And then it works like Google Docs, so when you have connectivity, then it will upload the books or whatever. The parent engagement is absolutely right. In some cases, the parents think that they cannot support the children, but they can actually. They're the one who learn the child how to talk. So we see that some of the parents, they can support their children. And for others who can't, we actually have features for when we write, when the parent does the adult writing or try to do that, we also help the parent by correct spelling. So this is also something where the parent can actually also learn at the same time while they're helping their children. Yeah, there's a question in the back.
Hi, I was just wondering, is this adaptive to like English language learners where like there's the kid, the natural language and then English afterwards so that it adapts to the classroom? Because like my wife's classroom has 4 different languages in it.
Yeah. So currently it's localized in British English, US English, and the Scandinavian languages. We have a specially built keyboard with letter sounds and letter names. So while the child is typing or writing, the child will hear the letter names and the letter sounds, because as we know, in English language, there's a lack of letter and sound match. So we're also addressing that problem. So we are planning to localize to other languages also, and Spanish and Chinese right now.
Is there a cost to the app?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So currently we're giving this away for free, so anybody can come up, sign up as a parent or teacher. just to try it out. What we're looking for is making the product even better. So we're just looking for feedback right now. So in 2016, at some point, we will be adding a business model onto the tool, which will be around $2 to $4 per student per year.
Sign up now.
Yeah, sign up now. That's the key takeaway. Yeah.
So having that monetization model, how is that going to? Having that monetization model, how does that reach the most needy students?
So we're targeting children who are in schools, and so because we're seeing the best results with students in the schools. But the question is good because having a monetization model, I mean, we also, in order for us to really reach out to more children, we need to have a monetization model for us as a startup to survive. So in order to prove our case, we need to see this as a business. Although that when we started, it was only a vision to help children globally to acquire literacy skills. But we definitely need to make this into a business. So that's why. There's a question down there.
My question is regarding San Mateo County itself. There's a measure that was passed a few years ago to get children to be reading by a certain age. And are you thinking, as part of your business model, to open a school or preschool? Or what strategies are you using now to get the word out?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we don't have any plan as opening school as such, but we're partnering up with schools. We're partnering up with districts. So let's say if there's any district within San Mateo County who wants to work with us, we'll be happy to give the product away for free and come into the classroom, educate the educators and teachers, and basically make some tests to see how it actually works in their classroom. So this is what we are working on right now. We're working with distribution partners. In Denmark and Scandinavia, we have an agreement with the largest publisher. So they're taking this to market. They're selling this as a standalone solution, but they're also selling this as an additional to their existing textbook curriculum. So let's say that you have all these textbooks in the classrooms, which is good for reading, but why not enable children to create their own stories based on what they've just read, or it could be a topic, a real life topic, it could be an interest, it could be a vacation, whatever, you know. Yeah.
Actually, what I have is more a comment. You hear third grade reading level a whole lot, and intuitively I know what that means. But this is a quote that comes from our county librarian. She says the important thing about third grade reading is that's when you change from learning how to read into reading to learn. And that statement is a really useful statement when you say third grade level, because people really understand that difference. And so it's a statement, not a question.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a question here.
Speaking of libraries, could this be put on any library computers, this app, and maybe the librarians be trained to be the helpers?
Yes, exactly, you can. Actually, we did a really good event where we had 800 children writing their own books. They printed out their books. There was a library book fair. The mayor came, and 800 books was displayed. And this was really the magic moment of our tool, where the children have created something, and they want to share it with others to show. So now the libraries are actually loaning out the books for other children to read and get inspired. So this was a really good event which we had in one of the largest districts in Denmark. Yeah. So the last question? Yeah. Yeah, let's just take the next one.
Just curious, have you looked at utilizing that more as a collaborative platform? In other words, you have multiple authors for a particular group, for a particular book, and really kind of fostering some partnership in this learning process?
Yeah, so we haven't really, what we have thought about is to create different kind of themes. So basically, if child wants to get some inspiration, they can get inspiration. They can read some books on the platform and get inspired, and then create their own stories, basically. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your questions.
Thank you very much, Babar. And now for the second challenge. The second challenge was ensure that all cities and the county reach the 2020 recycling goal to recycle, compost, or source reduce to lessen the impact on our landfills. And I'm really excited to bring up Jaime, the CEO of One Drop Interactive.
Thank you, Alec. And first off, I just wanted to thank GSVlabs. Alec and Lee and Michael Moe and the whole team here have really been incredible about creating spaces exactly like this. So they use this venue to connect startup entrepreneurs and technologists with direct customers, with people who can give them feedback right away. And this is a really valuable experience for us as it is for you, because you're able to impact what we create. So big thanks to GSVlabs for having me here today and for all of us here today. What I wanted to do is first off just give you a little bit of background on me. I'm Jaime Knack, and I am CEO of One Drop Interactive. My background is in the environmental consulting space. So I've spent, I'd say, the first part of my career, the last 15 years or so, implementing sustainability programs around the world for cities, for government agencies, for companies, for nonprofits. This year alone, we've been to South Africa, Australia, India. I'll be in Paris next week on a project with Vice President Al Gore. So we've had a lot of impact both here in the US and abroad, and we've seen some of the challenges and some of the opportunities specifically around waste diversion or implementing recycling and compost programs. And I would say one of the main challenges that we've seen, which I'm sure many of you in the room have seen, is that you can implement the best system, the best infrastructure, the best signage, but it's really the people factor. How do you affect change on the behavioral front? And about 2 years ago, I became obsessed with behavioral economics. I took a course at Harvard. I read every book from Nudge to Power of Habit to podcasts like Invisibilia, which talks about the invisible factors that influence our behavior every day. Listened to one on the plane today. But there's a lot of fascinating research out there. And we hired behavioral economics, economists. We worked with them and really looked at how do we focus on the behavior side of the environmental equation? So instead of looking at just the infrastructure changes we can make, how do we affect change across the billions of minds and people out there in the world? And specifically looking at nudges. So nudges, to me, it's a really simple word, but when I look at behavior, I look at it as you can affect teeny tiny behaviors in millions or billions of people, and it can have a huge impact across the globe. So first off, I'd like to reference one of the most successful cases of a nudge out there. Many of you might recognize this photo, which is Amsterdam. How many of you have been to Amsterdam? All right, so quite a lot. I know a lot of the hands were from women in the room, so this might not look as familiar to you as it does to some of the men in the room who have been to Amsterdam. This is an image of the men's bathroom in Amsterdam. So this nudge came about in the 1990s when the facilities manager at the Amsterdam airport was having this issue that happens at a lot of men's bathrooms across the world of the splashback factor. And the splashback factor was causing the facilities team to clean the men's bathroom twice as much as they clean the women's bathroom, more time, more labor, more water, more cleaning products. And so in the early 1990s, the head of facilities came up with a concept, an idea of a simple nudge, just providing a target. And that target, yes, that target was a little fly etched on the bottom of the urinal. And that's all he did. No sign, no messaging, nothing more than etching a simple little fly on the bottom of a urinal. And the reason why this nudge was successful is that it provided a fun, gamified experience, if you will, for the customer, so that the splashback challenge was reduced, and it actually led to a cost savings on labor, led to a water savings, and it led to a savings on overall cleaning products. And both the facilities team and the airport team was extremely happy about this. This tactic has been implemented from flies, other icons all over the world since Amsterdam had this successful nudge. The three things I'd like to point to with this nudge, which we'll reference later when it comes to recycling and helping the city governments here reach our 2020 recycling and compost and waste diversion goals, are three things. Number one is it was subtle. So it wasn't an order or a directive or yelling at the customer or the resident, you must recycle, you must do this. It was a very subtle sign that allowed them to change the behavior to the directed outcome. So it was subtle. Number two was it was framed toward the desired outcome. And I think that's really important. A lot of times what happens is designers or systems architects and infrastructure folks, they'll say, okay, we really want people to do X behavior. And so they come up with a solution, but they forget that it's actually not getting them toward the desired outcome. And then number three is it was fun. So make it fun is a really important part of a nudge. This was something that a lot of the users or the customers here reported that it was fun. It was a, if you will, gamified experience. An example of an unsuccessful nudge, specifically focused on the water problem. We're here in California, so I thought it would be important to mention. And these are some that we've seen over and over again. So this is an image of the button on one brand of a dual flush toilet. So this design makes sense. You know, you look at it, you're immediately drawn to the small means a small flush, the large button is the large flush, so it should make sense from a design perspective. But from the usability perspective, the desired outcome doesn't happen because people usually use their thumb. The easiest behavior is to just put your thumb on there and you press the big button and you get the big flush, which is the undesired outcome. Same thing here. This is another brand of a dual flush toilet. It's a lever that is made so that it's designed so that when you kick it down, it's the big flush, and up is the little flush. So for most of the women in the bathroom here, when we use the old levers that look just like this, we kick it down. We use our foot. We never touch that thing. So the behavior that we're used to is actually the undesired behavior, kicking it down, which is the large flush. More water, not the desired outcome. And this is just straight silliness. I don't know if you can see it there in the background, but it's basically a toilet that has the sink built in on top of it. Basically, you're washing your hands or brushing your teeth or doing something very strange with the water that's being repurposed from the toilet. So I don't think that design will work very well for many audiences. We've seen the same when it comes to recycling, compost, waste diversion programs. A lot of times, if you're someone like me, if you work in this space, you always look in a recycling bin just to see how it's working. And you see an image like this on the left here. It's a mess, completely contaminated. You'll see recyclables, you'll see what could have been compostables, and you'll see waste. And so what happens is this stuff gets then taken to a MRF, a municipal recycling facility. It's either sorted or a good portion of it might end up straight to landfill. You also see examples on the right there. The upper right corner, that's a Japanese city recycling system. You really need a handbook to understand what those 20 bins mean in order to get the system right. Chances are there's contamination there. And then the bottom is also something that's really important. So a lot of waste diversion systems that we've seen are designed so that the waste bin is actually the largest opening and it's the easiest thing to drop in, which again, people do the easiest things. We're lazy, we're in a hurry, we have a 0.5 second time to decide where we're gonna drop something, especially if they have a big plastic container, they throw it in the waste thing because the other two slits are too small for the container they're holding. So what we like to look at is how do we nudge people toward the right behavior. So again, the three factors for a positive or workable nudge. Number one is you'll see here in this image here, we've made it fun, right? So there's smiling bins, it's fun, it's color coded. Number two, we've also designed this for the desired outcome. So the outcome is that people either recycle or compost. You make the waste bin not only smaller, so someone would have to bend down, it's shorter, it's a smaller bin, and it's actually the hardest one to reach. And then three is it's subtle. So it just kind of blends in with the colors in the office there. It's not something that's bright or a sore thumb. It's not screaming recycle or die, something like that. It's very, very subtle, very straightforward. So this is what an example of a successful nudge is. one of the things that we've looked at is there's the system side, like the bins I just showed you, and then there's the individual side. And so again, 2 years ago when we were looking at this, we said, okay, how can we use technology to really influence behavior, influence that individual's behavior, so that when they interact with the system, whether it's designed for the desired outcome or not, they know how to make the right decision. We found that there was a lot of confusion out there, and education was one of the things that was not getting through to the general masses. And so we looked at how can we use ed tech or educational technology, combine it with the power of nudges so that it's fun, it's gamified, it's subtle, people are in peer-to-peer competitions and teams, similar to the education platform that was presented earlier. And we created One Drop Interactive. And we've had a lot of traction. This is an image, and I know we don't have time for a demo. I'd be happy to show anyone here today. This is an image of our interface. It's very easy to use, user-friendly, engages you in a 10 to 12 minute course on recycling and composting so that you're able to gather information quickly, earn points, you can see how your peers are doing, and you actually compete against others as well. We've had a lot of traction within the companies or the private sector because we also use the platform to gather data. So and particularly with employees, we're able to gather data about workspaces. In cities, we can gather data about neighborhoods and how behaviors are taking shape within a neighborhood to find areas for improving both on the cost saving side and the waste, energy, recycling side as well. We've gotten exposure to a global audience through companies like Accenture and many other corporate names, especially out here in the Valley too, tech companies that have really found that using technology that's educating and engaging their employees is a great way to increase knowledge and increase, again, that desired behavior of waste diversion. We've also been recruited by Cornerstone, which is one of the largest e-learning platforms in the world, to license our content. So they were really hungry for sustainability content, hungry for recycling, water, energy, educational content. So we've placed our content onto Cornerstone's platform as well. And why we're here today is we really are excited again by the opportunity that GSVlabs has created for us to connect with the government side of the equation. We feel that you can influence behaviors in the same way that companies have a reach to their tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees. You have a way to influence the behavior of your residents. And how we've created teams within a company from HR versus finance, we've talked with, we have an office in Santa Monica, so we've talked with the city of Santa Monica and city of LA about creating this team competition between neighborhoods, between different sectors of the community, so that we can not only educate and engage their residents about recycling and composting, energy and water, but we can actually make it fun, make it a competition, and raise the overall morale around the topic as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Any questions? Yeah, right here in the middle.
When you're coming up with these designs? So
Yes.
The whole empathy conversations and
Definitely, yeah. So we actually have folks on our team both from the design thinking aspect in addition to the behavioral economics aspect as well, which those discussions are very interesting because a lot of times they're coming at it from different angles. But in my mind, I've never seen that discussion happen before. So I think it's really important to be able to have that discussion and then bake it into the technology as well. Any other questions? Oh, yeah.
podcast, what really stands out for you on changing behavior?
Oh gosh, there's so many. One of the things, I'll reference a book that's fairly popular right now called The Power of Habit. And one of the things that it mentions from a personal habit perspective is that it's easiest to break habits when you're on vacation. So all of us have these invisible, almost autopilot habits that we get into when we wake up in the morning, we check our phone because it's right by the bed, or we go and we make coffee. Even if we don't want coffee, we turn on the coffee maker. It's like we're auto-programmed. And so if you wanted to break a habit that was in your auto-program, like having coffee every morning, the hardest thing to do would be to break that habit at home. because all of the cues, you're set off by cues that you're not even aware of, like the light in your room gets to a certain level and you're like, time to wake up, time to have coffee. So the best way to break, especially a hard habit like smoking, coffee, those types of things, is when you're on vacation, and especially if you're on like a 2-week vacation. You say, okay, I'm gonna go, and the first day I wake up in the hotel, I'm not gonna smoke, or I'm not gonna have coffee, or any of those things. It's a lot easier to break that habit while you're away from all of your cues, and then come home, and you're already reprogrammed after the ideally 21 days of the new habit. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jaime. For the final challenge is focused on early childhood education and how do we encourage more talking, singing, writing, dancing, all interaction for children under the age of 5. And so, I'm really, excited to introduce Paolo Debellini, the CEO of Herokins.
Thank you very much, Alec. Hello, everyone. So when it comes to children and technology, there's this ongoing debate or whether or not technology is bad for children. The most ironic and controversial thing about this is Steve Jobs, the inventor of the iPad, didn't let his children play with the iPad, which is quite controversial. The question here is not really if technology is bad for children, because it reminds me of like 10, 15 years ago when we were talking about whether or not the internet was good for the whole humanity. So it's how you use it, basically. And that's why, sorry, where's the, I forgot about this, sorry. When we look at children and technology today, what do we see? So, well, it's easy to picture a lot of children get hypnotized by iPads, smartphones, whatever. But it works both ways because, believe it or not, also children believe that their parents are spending too much time on their smartphones. And that's actually 55%, more than 1 in 2. And I think this is increasing, by the way. But at the same time, as I said, it's not whether or not technology is good, but it's how you use it. And we believe, at Herokins, we believe that there's a way to use technology to really enhance real-life experiences. And so that's what this is, so our mission is to create technology that really helps children develop their persona and foster the relationship with their families, with their parents, and with the world around them. So what we created is Herokins, and so it's, actually I can show it to you. So these little 2 toys, so you can see them here, and so these are 2 wearable smart toys. They are companions that guide children throughout some very important key milestones of their education, and they are connected to an app, which is an educational tool for parents that help parents grow, teach, and bond with their children. So how it works? So basically, we provide stories. We call them story quests that parents read on the screen. The smart toy is synchronized, is synced with the story and it's acting out what's on the screen through voice, through lights, and so on. And the most interesting part is that the kid, by wearing the toy on the wrist, is able to influence the story. So we have like a proximity sensor, we have a motion sensor. These sensors basically, they bring the story to life. So all in a sudden, the children is not just passively reading the story, but is actively playing and learning from it. So it's a learning by doing experience, or a learning by playing experience. And this obviously it's helping the child to really understand and develop his or her persona. And this goes back to a couple of years ago when I was on a hike with my nephew, 5 years old, was super grumpy. He just didn't want to walk. And my sister, she had another two to take care of, and so she was just yelling at him. So you can just, that's a perfect recipe for a disaster. So all in a sudden, completely by chance, I invented a story whereby to get to the top of the mountain, there were, you know, monsters, villains, and magic castles, and so on. All in a sudden, he was so motivated to actually literally run to the top of the mountain. And he wanted to do over and over again. So I just couldn't keep up with that. But I was like, wow, imagine if you can turn every teachable moment, any life lesson into a great story that kids are gonna intrinsically motivate to do it. This is not rewards. This is not, I'll give you a candy if you walk on top of the mountain. This is not like whatever else. This is like purely the motivation of the children, of children to do it. So the way it works, basically, we work with UC Berkeley on this. So we have mapped out the child developmental milestones up to 6 years old. That are very important for children to learn. Then we have a team of writers and illustrators in Hollywood. So they take these milestones and they transform them into captivating adventures. And then through our Herokins, patent-pending Herokins technology, we basically take these stories and we bring them to life in a way that children are protagonists of their own journey of growing up. So these are just some of the stories that we've been developing. So it goes from social emotional, you know, dealing with bullies, dealing with fear of dark, to things that are more life skills, for example, dressing up in the morning, toothbrushing, and so on. And we're also looking into education, like shapes, math, and so on. So to conclude, you know, imagine a world where, you know, toys are companions that truly respect the child uniqueness, companions that, you know, are not treating kids as robots, and companions that are not putting unnecessary pressure on the child. We want to create that world. We want to create that world where technology is really empowering children and is really connecting children to their family and to the world around them. Thank you very much. Do you have any question?
Hello? Wow, that's odd. So thank you very much. So you had mentioned right at the beginning, which piqued my interest a little bit. You were on your introduction, you were talking about the concern of the disconnect between children and their families due to technology. And I'm just wondering, just because you have said that, are you finding this to be a topic of conversation when you're presenting your product either to communities and or to funders?
That's a very good question. Yes and no. I mean, this is like a public debate that is going on. So it's something that, as you trigger it, like people are, you know, they want to talk about it. But in our tests, quite often, you know, I think because it's something new, our participants were not too concerned about the disconnect, they were more concerned about understanding how the experience was. But, you know, as you trigger that, yes, it's like opening, you know, a can of worms, and there's like ongoing debate for forever. So that's, it's like something that is, it's there, everyone can see it, but not too many people are talking publicly about that. But you just go on Google and you type kids and technology, and you can see like the first 1,000 results, and they're all about concerns and blogs and where parents are asking, so it's there.
I do have questions. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think that's exciting, because sometimes, you know, dealing with kids it's a challenge.
Yeah.
And then so to capture those moments of teachable moments, it's wonderful. And then, you know, turn the concept around. You mentioned about the wearable toys. What do those things do for the kids or for the adults, or what is the connection? I didn't really understand that very well.
The connection.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the child is wearing this toy, and this toy is participating to the story. So in a way, like imagine Okay, yeah, maybe I didn't explain that well. So imagine that, there's like a motion sensor. So the toy is telling the child to hide, to clap his or her hands, or to jump, run, and all these things, you know. So all in a sudden, the child is participating to the story and not just focusing on the screen, but it's like acting out. So it's like the co-protagonist of the story. So we basically have, you know, all these different actions that we're able to identify, the toy is able to identify and play them into the storyline. And this is in turn tied in with the child developmental objectives. You know, for example, for the 3 years old, it's very important to understand the cause-effect relationship. And that's something that by acting out, by deciding whether they want to jump or to run or to hide or to stand still, you know, they can understand their actions in a more effective and fun way. You're welcome.
How do they wear the toy? Where do they?
On their wrist. Yeah, we did it on the wrist. Well, at the beginning, we were thinking about a clip, but since we have a motion sensor inside, it's much more accurate when it's on the wrist, like a Fitbit, and that's basically the reason. But it's removable, so they can use it as an action figure. So they have like an ongoing relationship, a more intimate relationship with the toy at any time.
There's always an ongoing debate about structured versus unstructured play with young children. How does this play into that, allowing children to have unstructured time while still monitoring or motivating them?
That's a very good question. So I think that the role of the writer is really to guide people in general into the story and let everyone use their own imagination to picture how the story is then moving forward. So when we read a story, we have the so-called mirror neurons that are actively participating into the narrative. So it's really just the task of the writer to trigger them. So that's something that actually we were debating a couple of weeks ago, because there are toys like a Playmobil or Lego, which is completely unstructured, and there are like toys that like Star Wars toys or these kind of things that they have like a more structured play. But eventually we found out that kids, you just give them something, you just provide the source of inspiration that will play as they want. So I think that's the beauty of it. I cannot really say there's like a better or worse part.
So this system has 4 components: the child, the toy, the device, and someone to read the story from the device?
Yeah, so the parent reads the story. The child is wearing the toy, and then the toy is acting out the story, and the child has to perform certain actions like jumping, running, and so on. And of course, the child imagination is very important as well, because the toy will say, hey, you need to hide behind a tree. There's no tree in the room, but they see it, and that's the best thing of all. Any other question? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and to all of the presenters who came up and shared their products that they've been working on for so long. So I think, are we moving to lunch? So we are moving to lunch, and I will.
So we're moving to lunch. The lunches are in the back, and you're free to move around at lunchtime. Enjoy the time with each other. We'll be back at 12:30 promptly to do the Connect Award.